I woke up to cold sheets and silence. After 8 years of marriage, the emptiness on her side of the bed felt wrong. I found the note on the kitchen counter next to her wedding ring. Amanda explained she was leaving for a month to live with Jason, her colleague. She wrote she had been unhappy and confused, wanting to try out a relationship with him. The note promised she would return after 30 days to make her final decision between us. I stood there holding the paper, my world collapsing in real time. Where are you watching from today? Drop your location in the comments below and hit that subscribe button to follow my journey. Trust me, what happened next changed everything. The history of our relationship flashed through my mind as I read that note over and over. Amanda and I met in college 12 years ago. I was the quiet architecture student who somehow caught the attention of the most vibrant marketing major on campus. We dated for 4 years before I proposed on a hiking trip to Yosemite. The memory of her tearful yes now felt like a knife twist. For the past 5 years, I had been working as an architectural engineer at a prestigious firm in Boston. The hours were long, especially when deadlines loomed, but I thought we both understood the sacrifices. Amanda had climbed her way up to marketing executive at Horizon Brands, where she met Jason, a smooth-talking creative director who joined the company last year. We had been trying for a baby for nearly a year, with no success. The negative pregnancy tests each month had created a subtle tension between us, but I never imagined it would lead to this. Looking back, I could see the warning signs I had ignored. Amanda started working late more often. Her phone would be face down on the table. She began dressing differently, putting more effort into her appearance for work than for our date nights. The first few days after she left were a blur of desperate attempts to reach her. I called until she blocked my number. I texted until my messages went undelivered. Her responses were brief and cold. Please respect my decision and space. I need this time to figure things out. I made the mistake of checking social media. There they were, already public with their relationship. A photo of them at a restaurant I had wanted to take Amanda to for our anniversary. Another of them hiking a trail we had always talked about exploring together. Each image felt like a physical blow, each smile a betrayal. I scrolled through comments from mutual friends, some expressing surprise, others sending congratulations. The public humiliation burned worse than the private pain. Sleep became impossible. Food lost its taste. At work, I stared at blueprints without seeing them. My boss, David, pulled me aside after I miscalculated measurements on a major project. I told him I was dealing with some personal issues, but assured him it would not affect my work again. His concerned expression told me he did not believe me. On the 4th night, my best friend Michael showed up unannounced with beer and takeout. I had not told anyone what happened, but Amanda had apparently shared her side of the story with mutual friends. "You look like hell," he said, pushing past me into the apartment. I finally broke down and told him everything. The note, the 30-day trial period, the choice she planned to make. "That is not a marriage, Kenny," he said, his voice gentle but firm. "That is not how someone who loves you behaves." It was the first honest assessment I had heard, and something about it cut through the fog of my desperation. A week into her absence while cleaning our home office, I found evidence that shattered any remaining illusions. Hidden in her desk drawer was a burner phone, with months of text exchanges between her and Jason. The affair had been going on for at least 6 months, not the recent confusion she had claimed in her note. I discovered receipts for hotel rooms dating back to February, charges for expensive dinners on nights she had told me she was working late, a receipt for a gold bracelet purchased with our joint account, a gift for him on his birthday while she had told me we needed to budget for house repairs. The most devastating discovery came when I found her birth control pills hidden in her nightstand. She had stopped taking them 3 months ago, all while telling me she wanted a baby with me. The realization that she might have been trying to get pregnant with another man while married to me brought me to my knees. The first week was an endless cycle of emotional torment. 1 hour, I would be consumed with rage planning, confrontations, and revenge. The next, I would collapse into desperate bargaining, drafting pathetic texts, begging her to come home that I thankfully never sent. Then numbness would wash over me, a brief respite before the cycle began again. One night, I found myself driving past Jason's apartment, seeing her car parked outside. I sat there for nearly an hour imagining walking up to their door. What would I even say? What was there left to fight for? Eventually, I drove home the moment of potential confrontation passed. My sister Lindsay flew in from Chicago when Michael called her about my state. She stayed with me for 4 days, forcing me to eat, to shower, to step outside. She listened without judgment, as I cycled through the same painful realizations again and again. Some friends suggested I should fight for my marriage, pointing out that Amanda had not yet filed for divorce. Others insisted I needed to move on immediately, that the 30-day trial period was manipulative and cruel. Their conflicting advice only added to my confusion. The breaking point came during a client presentation in the second week. I was explaining the structural modifications to a downtown renovation when I saw a woman who looked like Amanda in my peripheral vision. It was not her, but the momentary shock derailed my thoughts completely. I stood there silent and sweating until David smoothly stepped in to continue. Later, he suggested I take some time off. I refused. Work was the only thing keeping me from falling apart entirely. 2 weeks after her departure, Amanda texted me as though nothing had happened. "Did you pay the electricity bill? It was due yesterday." The casual nature of her message after everything that had happened ignited something in me. I responded with more anger than I had allowed myself to express. "Yes, I paid it. I am also still paying the mortgage on the home you abandoned, the car payment for the car you drove to another man's house, and the credit card bill with all your charges. Anything else you need from your backup plan?" Her response came quickly, casting herself as the victim. "I am trying to be responsible. I did not abandon our home. I just needed this time away to get clarity. You are being unfair right now." That evening, I received a call from our mutual friend Diane. In an attempt to be kind, she mentioned that she had been worried about our marriage for months because Amanda had confided in her about my emotional unavailability. According to Diane, Amanda had been suffering in silence through my workaholism and lack of affection. I hung up the phone feeling like I had stepped into an alternate reality. The husband Amanda described to our friends was unrecognizable to me. I had always prioritized our relationship, adjusted my schedule for her events, planned surprises, and date nights. She was rewriting our history to justify her betrayal, and people were believing her version. My anger finally pushed me to take practical action. I checked our financial accounts and discovered large withdrawals in the weeks before she left. Over $9,000 was missing from our joint savings account. She had maxed out our shared credit card on a weekend trip to Vermont with Jason, a trip she had told me was a work retreat. I called my law school friend Tom, who specialized in divorce cases. He advised me to immediately document all the financial misconduct and protect my remaining assets. That afternoon, I froze our joint accounts and removed her as an authorized user on my personal credit card. I documented every questionable transaction with dates and amounts. Tom warned me that her behavior indicated someone who was planning this exit for months, not someone having a sudden identity crisis. The public humiliation continued to unfold. At the grocery store, I ran into neighbors who gave me pitying looks. At the gym, I overheard comments about the architectural guy whose wife ran off with the creative director. It seemed everyone knew about my marriage failing before I did. The most painful revelation came when I met my brother-in-law for a drink. He hesitantly told me that Jason had a reputation at previous companies for pursuing married women. This was apparently his third workplace affair, and Amanda almost certainly knew about his history. The idea that she had chosen someone with this pattern, knowing the pain it would cause, was almost harder to bear than the betrayal itself. 17 days after Amanda left, I hit my lowest point. After drinking most of a bottle of whiskey alone, I called her repeatedly. When she did not answer, I sent a stream of text messages alternating between anger and pleading. I woke up the next morning to discover I had sent 37 messages with no response. The shame of my breakdown added a new layer to my pain. That day, I nearly lost a major project at work. I had miscalculated load-bearing requirements on a design that was due to be presented to clients. David caught the error just in time, but afterward, he sat me down for a serious conversation. "I value you as an architect and as a person, Kenny," he said. "But I need to know if you can handle your responsibilities right now. This is the kind of mistake that costs firms like ours their reputation." His words were a wake-up call. I was letting Amanda destroy not just my personal life, but my professional one as well. I promised to focus and asked for his patience, which he granted with the condition that I start seeing the therapist covered by our company insurance. My first therapy session was scheduled for the next day. Dr. Maureen Carter was a straight-talking woman in her 60s who listened to my story without the pity or judgment I had seen from friends. "It sounds like you are waiting for permission to feel angry," she observed after I explained the 30-day trial period. "You are allowing yourself to be an option rather than advocating for your own worth." Her words hit me like a physical force. She asked questions. No one else had dared to. If she comes back, would you ever trust her again? When she is with him, are you just sitting around waiting? Who gave her the power to be the only one who gets to make a choice here? The questions lingered with me as I drove to visit my grandfather that weekend. At 92, he had survived the loss of my grandmother after 60 years of marriage. When I told him what happened expecting sympathy, he instead offered clarity. "The moment someone puts you in competition for their love, you have already lost, son," he said, his weathered hands steady around his coffee cup. "Your grandmother and I disagreed plenty, but we never stopped choosing each other every single day." Driving home from his assisted living facility, something shifted inside me. I had been so focused on Amanda choosing me that I had forgotten I also had a choice to make. Did I even want someone who could walk away so easily? Someone who could subject me to this humiliation and pain? Someone who had lied to my face for months? For the first time since finding her note, I felt something beyond pain and confusion. I felt the first spark of anger not directed at myself or Jason, but at Amanda and the position she had put me in. I deserved better than being someone's second choice. I deserved better than conditional love. That night I made a decision. Regardless of what choice Amanda made after her 30 days of freedom, I would make my own choice first, and I chose my self-respect. My transformation began with practical steps. The morning after my epiphany, I called Tom and asked him to prepare divorce papers. I wanted them ready before Amanda returned, regardless of what she decided. Having a concrete plan gave me a sense of control I had been missing. I gathered all evidence of the affair and financial misconduct, organizing it chronologically in a folder. It was painful to see the timeline of betrayal laid out so clearly, but facing the truth was essential for my healing. Dr. Carter agreed to see me twice weekly, helping me process not just the betrayal but the patterns in our relationship that I had overlooked. I realized Amanda had often used emotional withdrawal as a way to control my behavior. If I worked late, she would give me the silent treatment. If I disagreed with her choices, she would threaten to cancel plans that were important to me. These were not healthy dynamics, regardless of her infidelity. Physical activity became my outlet for the emotions that threatened to overwhelm me. I joined a gym closer to home and went every morning before work. The routine of physical exertion gave structure to my days and helped me sleep at night. The changes in my body became visible within weeks, a physical manifestation of my internal transformation. I reconnected with friends I had lost touch with during my marriage. Amanda had never liked my college roommate Patrick or my childhood friend Alex, calling them immature and a bad influence. Looking back, I could see how she had systematically isolated me from people who were important to me. I invited them over for a basketball game, and their uncomplicated acceptance was a balm to my wounded spirit. At work, I channeled my energy into a design competition our firm had entered. David had initially suggested I sit it out given my personal circumstances, but I insisted on participating. The focus required helped me escape my ruminating thoughts, and the creative challenge reignited my passion for architecture. My design for a sustainable community center was selected as our firm's entry, earning praise from partners who had previously seen me only as a reliable team member rather than an innovative designer. The house that had once been our home began to feel like a museum of a failed relationship. Every corner held memories that cut like glass. I decided to reclaim the space by transforming it. I repainted the living room a deep blue that Amanda had always vetoed as too dark. I sold the expensive smart television she had insisted we buy, despite our budget constraints, and used the money to purchase comfortable reading chairs and bookshelves for the space instead. My bonus from the design competition went toward paying off the credit card debt she had accumulated. There was something powerfully symbolic about clearing away the financial burden of her betrayal. Each payment felt like removing a weight from my shoulders. The most significant addition to my new life came unexpectedly. While running in the park, I encountered a golden retriever tied to a bench, abandoned by his owner. After waiting for hours and checking with nearby residents, I took him to a local shelter. When no one claimed him after a week, I found myself filling out adoption papers. Max became my constant companion, his uncomplicated affection healing parts of me I had not realized were broken. With Max as motivation, I signed up for cooking classes at a local community center. Amanda had always insisted I would be terrible in the kitchen, taking over whenever I attempted to help with meals. The instructor, an enthusiastic retired chef named Tony, praised my natural instincts for flavor combinations. The simple act of creating nourishing meals for myself became another form of reclaiming my independence. The final touch in transforming our house into my home was starting a renovation project I had always wanted to pursue. The unfinished basement had potential to become a home office and creative space. Amanda had dismissed the idea as unnecessary and expensive. Now I drew up plans, secured permits, and began the work myself on weekends. The physical labor of demolition was particularly satisfying. 20 days after Amanda left, I felt ready to face my social circle again. I hosted a small dinner party for my sister Lindsay, who was visiting again Michael and his wife and a couple of neighbors, who had shown genuine concern. I cooked the entire meal myself, served wine I actually enjoyed, rather than the brands Amanda preferred, and found myself laughing genuinely for the first time in weeks. At Lindsay's suggestion, I was honest with family and close friends about the situation, not in a bid for sympathy but as a simple acknowledgement of reality. The weight of keeping up appearances lifted, allowing authentic connections to flourish. I discovered that certain mutual friends had been feeding information about me back to Amanda. Photos of me with friends at a restaurant appeared to cause a flurry of texts from her asking casual questions about whether I was seeing anyone. I made the decision to distance myself from these information channels not out of spite, but as a boundary necessary for my healing. New social connections came through unexpected channels. A hiking group that met Saturday mornings welcomed Max and me into their fold. The combination of physical exertion, natural beauty, and casual conversation with people who knew nothing of my personal drama became the highlight of my week. One Tuesday evening, Max injured his paw on a piece of broken glass during our walk. The emergency vet clinic was staffed that night by Dr. Entu. Sarah Miller, a woman about my age with kind eyes and a gentle manner with Max. She asked me questions about his adoption and seemed genuinely touched by the story. Before we left, she gave me her card with her personal cell number written on the back in case Max had any issues overnight. I found myself thinking about her laugh several times over the following days. As the 30-day deadline approached, Amanda began reaching out more frequently. Her texts evolved from practical questions about bills to comments about missing certain aspects of our life together. I maintained polite but distant responses, no longer feeling the desperate need to recapture her attention. Her friend Taylor, who had always been kind to me, called to check in. During our conversation, she let slip that things between Amanda and Jason were becoming tense. Apparently, the reality of daily life together had diminished the excitement of their forbidden relationship. I thanked her for her concern but did not pursue details. The information no longer held power over my emotions. Michael confirmed Taylor hints during our weekly basketball game. He had heard through his wife, who worked at a partner firm to Horizon Brands, that Jason had been seen arguing with Amanda at company events. There were also rumors he was already showing interest in another colleague. 5 days before the 30-day deadline, I met with Tom to finalize the divorce papers. He had prepared a fair but firm division of assets that protected my interests while offering reasonable terms to Amanda. I did not want revenge, just closure and protection. That same evening, I wrote a letter expressing my feelings. Not to convince her of anything or to hurt her in return, but to achieve the closure I needed, regardless of her decision. The process of articulating my journey from devastation to self-respect was powerful. I prepared the house for what I expected would be our final conversation as a couple. I cleared out most of her remaining belongings, packing them neatly in boxes in the guest room. I removed our wedding photos from the walls, replacing them with artwork I had purchased from local artists. I made arrangements to stay with Lindsay afterward if the encounter proved too difficult to process alone. The night before the 30-day mark, I sat in my renovated living room with Max beside me, reflecting on the transformation of the past month. The pain had not disappeared entirely, but it had changed form. What had been a desperate clawing ache had mellowed into a bittersweet acceptance. Regardless of what happened the next day, I knew I would be okay. Exactly 30 days after leaving Amanda returned to what had once been our home, I heard her key in the lock at precisely 6 o'clock in the evening. Max, who had never met her, offered one curious bark before settling at my feet. The shock on her face as she took in the changes to the house was evident. Her eyes widened at the new paint color, the different furniture arrangement, the absence of her decorative touches. But her most pronounced reaction came when she looked at me. "Kenny, you look different," she said, setting her purse on the counter where her note had been a month before. I was different in ways both visible and invisible. The physical changes from my gym routine were apparent, but the greater transformation was in my posture, my confidence, the steady way I met her, gaze without the desperate hope that had defined our last interactions. "We need to talk," she said, her voice taking on the soft, vulnerable tone she had always used when she wanted something from me. I gestured toward the living room, and she hesitated before perching uncomfortably on the edge of the new armchair. Max positioned himself between us, a furry guardian of my hard-won boundaries. I listened as she delivered what seemed like a rehearsed speech about choosing our marriage. She spoke about the clarity the time apart had given her, how she had realized what truly mattered. She mentioned our history, the love we had built, the future we had planned. What she did not mention was Jason, until I quietly asked how things had ended between them. Her composure faltered briefly. "He met someone else," she admitted. "In the office. It happened last week." "So you would still be with him if he had not ended it?" I asked, my voice calm, despite the renewed hurt her admission caused. "It is not that simple, Kenny," she said, reaching for my hand. I was confused, but I always knew in my heart that what we have is real. Jason was a mistake. I looked at the woman I had loved for 12 years, the person I had built my life around, and felt an unexpected wave of gratitude for the painful gift she had given me. "Thank you," I said, surprising her. "Your leaving gave me clarity too." I explained the journey her absence had forced me to take, the discovery of her months-long deception, the financial betrayals, the rewriting of our history to justify her choices, but also the rediscovery of my self-worth, my reconnection with friends, my renewed passion for my work and life. "I think we both know our marriage had problems," I acknowledged. "I was not perfect, but what you did was not about our issues. It was a choice you made multiple times over months. You lied to my face while sharing your body and our resources with someone else." She began to cry the tears I once would have done anything to stop. Now I simply offered a box of tissues. "I made a mistake, Kenny. A terrible mistake," she sobbed. "I love you. I never stopped loving you. We can fix this, go to counseling, rebuild." I waited until her tears subsided before responding. "The thing is, Amanda, I do not want to fix this," I said gently. "I deserve better than being someone's backup plan. I deserve someone who chooses me every day, not just when their first choice falls through. And honestly, you deserve the chance to figure out what you really want instead of bouncing between relationships." I reached for the folder on the coffee table and handed her the divorce papers Tom had prepared. "I am not doing this to hurt you," I explained as she stared at the documents in shock. "I am doing this because I respect myself too much to be an option in your life. But I choose you," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I came back." I shook my head. "You came back when Jason rejected you. That is not the same as choosing me. And more importantly, I am not choosing this relationship anymore." The conversation continued for another hour. She cycled through tears, anger, bargaining, and more tears. She accused me of having planned this all along, of waiting to hurt her, of never having truly loved her. I listened without defensiveness, recognizing these reactions as part of her process, just as I had experienced my own. When she finally left taking only her purse and the divorce papers, I felt a complex mixture of sadness and relief. I sent Lindsay a text, letting her know I was okay and would not need to stay with her after all. Max and I went for a long walk under the stars, the September air cool against my face. The months that followed brought challenges and growth in equal measure. Finalizing the divorce was painful but necessary. Dividing the life we had built together required difficult decisions and compromises. There were days when doubts crept in, when memories of good times made me question my choice. But there were far more days of discovery and renewal. My design for the community center won the competition, leading to a promotion at work. The basement renovation was completed by Christmas, giving me a beautiful space to explore creative projects outside of my job. My friendship with Sarah, the veterinarian, developed slowly and respectfully. We began with dog park meetups, her rescue pit bull becoming Mac's best friend. Coffee after walks evolved into dinners and movies. 6 months after Amanda left, Sarah and I shared our first kiss. There was no rush, no desperate need to fill a void, just the gentle unfolding of genuine connection. I saw Amanda one last time at our mutual friend's wedding in the spring. She came alone and looked well, if subdued. We exchanged polite greetings, and I was surprised to find I felt no lingering anger, only a distant compassion for the journey we had both traveled. The greatest lesson from this chapter of my life was understanding the difference between loving someone and valuing myself. Sometimes the most painful experiences become our most powerful teachers. The month that began with abandonment ended with liberation, not because I learned to live without Amanda, but because I learned to live fully as myself. Have you ever had to choose self-respect over a relationship? Share your story in the comments below. If this journey resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe to hear more stories of overcoming life's challenges. Hit that share button if you know someone who might need to hear that they deserve to be more than someone's option. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that sometimes the most painful endings lead to the most beautiful beginnings.